Opinion column by Mert Mapolar. Title: A New Path in Cyprus, the Cooperation Council, Claim and the Behavioral Map of the First Contacts. The Greek Cypriot press reports that during the Turkish Cypriot leaders' meeting in Ankara, Turkey presented a model called a Cooperation Council, a two-state framework with loose ties. The interactions in Ankara, along with the South's call to restart negotiations without preconditions, make it even more critical to understand how the process should be behaviorally structured. In this article, I summarize the claims under discussion and, within my field of expertise, provide concrete behavioral and political communication recommendations for both the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot leaderships, to be used in the initial meetings as well as in subsequent contacts. With the latest developments, media outlets in the South have written that Turkey proposed a model, under the label Cooperation Council, in which two separate administrations on the island would coordinate with each other through loose institutional links. At this stage, Turkey continues to emphasize its two-state perspective, while the Greek Cypriot leadership insists on restarting negotiations from where they left off in 2017, unconditionally and without preconditions. These new allegations are rapidly evolving into a framing that could deepen polarization in both the media and public perception. In other words, the discourse, behavior, and small symbolic steps taken during the first contacts and the meetings that follow have the potential to shape the trajectory of the process far more significantly than expected. For this reason, every step taken from this point onward must carefully consider how it will influence perception and the delicate climate of trust. Why is a behavioral approach essential at this stage? It must be recognized, more clearly than ever, that political negotiations are not limited to the discussion of articles or formal content. First impressions, framing, symbolic gestures, agenda sequencing, and media management are critical elements that shape the direction of a negotiation process. The strategic use of behavioral sciences, perception management, framing, trust-building mechanisms, reinforcement of social norms, enables trust to be established more quickly between the parties. However, if poorly planned, these same elements can lead to irreversible deadlocks. For both the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot leaderships, what is discussed is now just as important as which language is used, in what sequence, and in what setting. Behavioral priorities for the first meetings. 1. Symbolic steps that reinforce trust. The meeting should begin with a small symbolic gesture that both sides can easily accept. For instance, a brief joint affirmation of support for a shared declaration can significantly strengthen the atmosphere of trust. 2. Establishing the frame. The negotiations should be framed as open-ended and result-oriented. Neither side should use judgmental or confrontational language at the outset. Instead of seeking a solution, more neutral terminology such as managing shared challenges would be more constructive. 3. Low-risk early agenda items. Early discussions should focus on areas of mutual benefit, natural resource management, maritime safety, disaster and emergency coordination, and health cooperation. These small early successes reinforce trust and provide a solid foundation for tackling more challenging issues later. 4. Media and public communication management. Joint statements should be drafted in advance, refined to remove provocative expressions, and released only after mutual approval. Both leaders should have clear, prepared messages for their domestic audiences, helping maintain stability and confidence. Behavioral recommendations for the Turkish Cypriot leadership. Domestic communication preparedness. The negotiation language should differ from election period rhetoric and adopt an honorable yet constructive tone. While maintaining emphasis on sovereignty, the leader should present tangible examples of mutual benefit, such as a pilot water management initiative or a joint wind energy project. Body language and micro-expressions. To project leadership and collaborative intent, the leader should avoid displays of anger or defensiveness. Open palm gestures and forward-leaning posture convey cooperation. Awareness of these behavioral cues helps maintain self-control, correctly shape the other side's perception, and increase the likelihood of successful negotiations. Architecture of concessions. By proposing symbolic or technical steps at the outset, joint commissions, pilot projects, the leader reduces the impression of unilateral concessions. When the other side takes a positive step, offering an immediate small reciprocal reward, such as a joint press statement, strengthens reciprocity and encourages cooperation. Communication on security and military matters. Since the presence of military forces is highly sensitive, entering direct confrontation on this topic should be avoided. Instead, mechanisms like an observer technical commission can be proposed. Wording that reaffirms both sides' sovereignty can help protect sensitivities without harming the negotiation climate. Behavioral recommendations for the Greek Cypriot leadership. Balancing clarity with a flexible framework. The call for restarting talks without preconditions conveys a strong political stance. Yet, to initiate negotiations effectively, the first step should include limited, measurable preparatory elements, such as agreement on the agenda or the involvement of third-party observers. Resilient communication. Public messaging should balance demanding progress with not rejecting engagement. A confrontational or dismissive tone should be avoided. Instead, arguments grounded in transparency, international law, and citizens' rights should be emphasized clearly. Confidence-building measures. In areas such as maritime and natural resource management, independent technical experts should be consulted. Sharing economic benefit projections with the public also helps increase grassroots support. Joint tactical recommendations, step by step. Pre-meeting preparation. Both sides should engage in intensive diplomatic and technical pre-consultations to agree on a shared terminology. Opening session. The first 45 to 60 minutes should focus solely on positive objectives, shared values, and a draft mechanism. A symbolic gesture may be used to open the meeting. A brief 2 to 3 sentence joint statement should be prepared beforehand. Second stage, 30 to 90 days. Technical commissions should be established and pilot projects launched in maritime safety, natural resources, and disaster management. Success metrics should be clear and regularly monitored. Third stage. Depending on the outcomes of pilot projects, the scope should expand, and working groups should be formed for more difficult topics, with time-limited and compromise-oriented mandates. Ongoing media management. A shared communication calendar should be created with a message bank prepared for potential crises. Behavioral tools and practical applications. Framing. Labels like Cooperation Council carry heavy emotional and political meaning. Early meetings should adopt more neutral terminology, for example, replacing Island Cooperation Platform with Technical Coordination Platform. Small wins. Achieving a measurable small win within the first 60 days, such as a joint meteorological alert system, creates momentum and builds trust. Trust Capital Bank. Mechanisms like mutual deferral rights can be used during disagreements. Building this trust capital increases flexibility for concessions later. Neutral mediators. To prevent deadlocks, UN representatives or non-regional technical experts should take part in managing mechanisms. Potential risks and how to mitigate them. Media-driven polarization. Both leaders should avoid rhetoric that could undermine the process. Joint press statements should be pre-approved and controlled. Misinterpretation of labels. One side may interpret Cooperation Council as implying a two-state structure. Therefore, intentions should be demonstrated through practical pilot projects rather than emotionally charged labels. Practical and implementable solutions. Pilot Technical Coordination Office. A limited mandate, time-bound office with third-party observers should be established for natural resource management and emergency coordination. Joint Communication Protocol. A mechanism should be created to ensure that post-meeting statements exclude provocative wording. Independent expert pool. Specialists in energy, maritime law, and environmental sciences should be available for quick consultation in disputes. Societal-level confidence building. Small-scale exchange programs, student exchanges, joint cultural or music events, should be implemented to strengthen intercommunity trust. Conclusion and a brief call. The first meetings may serve as a warming period that shapes the island's future. Panic or provocation, especially in the shadow of emerging allegations, will only deepen deadlock. The best strategy for both sides is to build trust through symbolic gestures, create small technical wins, manage media responsibly, and consciously use behavioral tools such as framing, reciprocity, and small wins. If these steps are taken properly, it will be possible to produce realistic and mutually beneficial solutions beyond the current debate over the Cooperation Council. Note: this article has been prepared based on various claims emerging from sources in both South and North Cyprus. These uncertainties highlight the strategic importance of cautious planning and conscious decision-making in the early contacts and subsequent meetings. Final words. As a Turkish Cypriot scientist specializing in subconscious behavioral sciences, I have long worked directly on the subconscious mechanisms that shape human behavior. By analyzing these processes with scientific methods, I develop effective communication strategies. With advanced training and global experience in subconscious-focused behavioral communication, and with a deep commitment to my homeland, I attach great importance to the Cyprus issue and contribute multidimensional perspectives whenever possible. I wrote this article with the same awareness. Let me emphasize one thing clearly. In the Cyprus issue, positive openings that benefit both sides are entirely possible, if the will and determination exist. What matters is knowing which tools are in your toolkit, understanding them, and using them skillfully. The right tools, combined with the right steps, shape the future. This article was voiced from the November 21, 2025, opinion column, by Razi Dinlik, published in Kibris Postasi, written by subconscious behavioral scientist Mert Mapolar. Thank you for listening.